There's something kind of panicky about a poor review. There's like when you see it, you're like, "Ugh!" Like you feel like unless you address it right then and immediately, like somehow your business is going to fall apart. But you can take a second to investigate. You can take it. You've got to know the facts over the feelings.
Hey there, I'm Emily Washkovic, Yelp small business expert. And here on Behind the Review, I sit down with entrepreneurs and industry leaders to get all the tips and tricks you might need to grow your small business. Today, you're going to watch a conversation I had with Jami Stigliano. Jami's the founder of nationwide franchise DivaDance, and she shared with me how she created a culture that's actually mirrorable and scalable. Let's give our conversation a listen. Today is a very special guest and someone who has been on Behind the Review before. Jami, thank you so much for joining us again today. You are the founder of DivaDance, which is a fun alternative to regular fitness or competitive dance classes. When did you realize that this was going to be a business of yours that you wanted to grow?
Well, thanks for having me back. Hopefully, we have a lot more reviews than the first time we spoke, and so appreciative to our community that just continues to give us all the feedback that we need to advance our brand. And I know we'll get into a little bit more of that later. But I started the concept after I went and took a dance class when I was living in New York City as a young, kind of entry level music industry aspiring executive. And I went and took a class after work because I was looking for a fun fitness option. I was looking to meet new people, and I walked out of there defeated. And so on the corner of 57th and Broadway, I was determined to create an experience that inspired confidence and built community, the two very important things that I was looking for in that experience. And so, I just started teaching my own classes. Never knew it would be a real business, never intended for me, definitely never intended to franchise, but, I kind of created this hobby business that turned out to be a really great supplemental income stream for me while I was building my career. And when I was looking to exit the music industry, I said, well, I got this little business. Like, what if I were to give this my full attention? And it turns out when you give something the best you have to offer, good things typically happen. So that's kind of how we have gotten here. And really why I chose franchising was to bring this experience in more cities and create that same experience for other folks.
And I'm so excited to talk more about franchising because, in my opinion, franchise businesses have structure and systems, and a lot of those things can be helpful for small local independent businesses as well. Let's talk a little bit about your earliest challenges. What was that like in the early days when you were trying to scale? What were you running into, and what was maybe preventing you from getting as fast as you wanted to right away?
Well, it's probably an obvious answer, but capitalization. I mean, people do not realize how much money it truly costs to not just start a business, but grow a business. It actually doesn't cost that much money to start a business. You buy your domain name, you order some business cards, depending on what your product or service is. You may have some cost of goods. You need to create a website. So, to start a business actually is a pretty reasonable, capitalization type of accessibility point. But when you go to grow is when you don't realize the capital it takes. So in franchising, to actually franchise your business, there's a lot of legal work required. You typically, depending on where you're at in the journey, I needed to start another location so that I could document that process. Obviously, you need people. I was very fortunate very early on that I had folks in my immediate circle that were willing to work for nothing or very little to help me build this. And of course, I didn't pay myself, which means I had to lower my own lifestyle and like my own overhead. I moved in with my parents, all those entrepreneurial sacrifices you make, but really the capitalization, because if you're capitalized enough, then you have access to advisors and consultants and people to help you. So as much as I would say, well, I just didn't know what I didn't know, you can find out what you don't know, but it takes capitalization. So the good news is nowadays there's lots of ways to capitalize a business between SBA loans, small business things. There's these community development funds that are there to help folks find capital for their business. Angel investors, grandparents, moms and dads, if you have access to that type of privilege and benefit. But the real issue is if you are undercapitalized, your growth will take a little bit longer.
I think that's such an important point, and I hear that a lot from business owners. It always costs more than I thought, or getting to that next stage really requires a lot of resources. So I think that's a good point and something for people to keep in mind as they're growing their own business.
But also not being defeated by it. Even if I don't have that cash in my bank, where there's a will, there's a way. And then at the very least, leveraging your own initial concept to get the capital you need to at least keep gas going in the tank. So my message there is that, don't feel defeated if you don't have access. If you don't think you have access to that capital, go find it.
Yeah, and I also think, like you originally said, pouring yourself into the brand was a huge driver for DivaDance's growth as well. And that leads me right into my next question. DivaDance is about so much more than just dancing. I mean, confidence and community are really the root of what you do. How did you build that into the experience?
Well, you have to know your mission and have clarity of your mission. I think a lot of entrepreneurs think that they have clarity of their mission, like, well, I just want to like make people happier, I just want us to be successful, but really getting clear on what does that look like day to day, and then how does that trickle down to literally the experience that your folks have in your product or service. So for us, I mean, confidence is, well, I started with my own core values. I mean, confidence to me is literally the ticket. If you and by the way, confidence is just the belief that you're capable. It doesn't mean you're better than anyone. It doesn't mean that you have some superpower, although we all have our own superpowers. It's just the belief that you're capable is confidence. So that was our first kind of thing where, what am I really trying to help people do? Not just dance, but feel great in the process. And then the second thing is, I'm so passionate about connection and community and human beings. That's the stuff, that's why we're here. That's the stuff that like fills your heart, fills your tank, it's your why, it's your purpose. And so I really wanted to create an experience that really nailed both of those, because I knew if I could do that, people don't buy what you sell, they buy why you sell it, why you do it. And so that was what I knew very early on. If I could nail our why and what we were trying to accomplish, the reason, then the what is actually pretty easy. So that trickled into everything from how do we make folks feel safe when even from the minute they walk in, even before that, from when they first put their name in a lead capture or they fill out something on our website, how are we immediately making them feel good and like welcome and emotionally safe? And then when they do get there, how are we creating confidence in the way we teach the classes? How are we building community by the way we're intentionally creating community between people, not just in the studio, but beyond? So I would say, advice to an entrepreneur is getting very clear on the why you do what you do, and then the what just backs that up.
I love that. That's great advice. Let's talk a little bit about how you train the different instructors and even franchisees to really emulate that same vibe that you want to have. How do you teach them to create that judgment-free zone?
Well, what's great about our instructors, I think that why it's a great gig, is that they do get to create their own choreography. It's actually a huge asset of ours that every class is different. All of our instructors bring their own inspiration and flavor and background. We have amazing, diversity of experience and even just, cultural backgrounds in our instructors. And it's important that they can bring that to the table. But in our instructor development program, we less about telling them exactly what to do. Again, it's that ethos. It's here's how we inspire confidence. It's not these are the movements you need to teach. So it's even little things like how we teach people, how we teach the brain to talk to the body, because that's really what muscle memory is. It's really me telling you, like even right now, Emily, if I was like, all right, we're going to shake our hips right to left. Ready, let's do it. You would be like, okay, right, left, right, left. I didn't even demonstrate it. Your body listened to your brain, because we all know right and left for the most part, and it tells our body what to do. So we teach our instructors how to literally use words, how to say and how to teach something in a succinct way that teaches the brain to talk to the body. And then those other things like doing things twice in a row with the music, giving things fun names to help the brain remember. So we teach our instructors in that process, again, not exactly what movement to teach, but how to bring their own vision into that studio in a way that's accessible and consistent. You mentioned a system of a franchise. So it's really important that the system is the system, and that our system, again, is less about the actual choreography and the system by which we create that confidence in the process.
I love that. Okay, before I ask you the next question, I feel like I have to update this number too. So it was supposed to say you've built a powerful community across 20 plus cities, but it should be 50 plus.
Yeah, we've grown quite a bit. I'm very grateful for that, and a lot of our growth has been, I mean, most of our growth has been really organic. It's two sources: folks who have been part of one of our existing communities in cities like Chicago, New York City, DC, Austin. I mean, we're in lots of cities now, and then they may relocate somewhere where we don't have DivaDance, and they say, "Hey, I want to be the franchisee here." We've had a few of those experiences, which has been so special. Then we have folks who are Googling and searching for the dance classes like ours in their city, and they don't exist. What we do, I didn't invent the dance class. I just made it more accessible for folks. And so they go to find dance classes, and it's not that there's no dance class. There's no classes like ours, what we do and the experience we create. So that's how we get folks going, oh, they franchise. I'm interested in that. So we've been really fortunate to grow very organically over the last few years. And, obviously it's very much in part to our clients who have achieved that experience, and then they've told people about us. But hopefully that even the next time you and I talk in the future, hopefully that number will be even bigger, because that means we'll be changing even more lives.
I love that. And it really is about creating the community in the places that you are. And that's something that I think not all businesses focus on is how do you foster community and really make that what people remember about your business. Do you have any tips that you provide your franchise owners about how to build community when they get started?
Definitely. Well, first of all, it starts from, it has to be authentic. It has to be real. And so that starts even before someone becomes a member, and us truly understanding, like, what are you here for? What made you find us? What made you click on that ad? And one question we love to ask folks is, why today? Why was today the day for you? And folks will share a lot, like, well, I just got out of a relationship, or I'm new to the city, or I haven't been feeling my best, or I just want to do something fun. We all have a real reason that we do things. It's not always just like, oh, I signed up. Well, why today? So it starts with that initial authentic connection of why are you here? And then it carries through to every other interaction. So we definitely have structured things, like we have things called Diva Dates, community events where we go do fun things. We all know it's hard to make friends as an adult. So us creating those containers for folks to do that organically. But then it's also even in the in-class experience and that authentic connection with people. We celebrate people's milestones, how many classes you take. We even have like a Sweet 16. We don't wait till you've been coming to class for a year. At your 16th class, we're going to recognize you. We love Divaversaries. You've been coming for a year. All those things are those little things that make a big difference for folks. And then the most important and simplest thing, honestly, is names. Knowing people's names. And if you don't know, you ask. It's one of those very simple things that, that can, I can't think of anything less authentic in community than you not knowing someone's name, or you just say, oh, I'm bad at names, and you have to just accept that is why you can't know my name. So that's just kind of like a very foundational thing that helps us create that community, in addition to those events and other things we do outside the studio.
Really great advice there and things that people can action on at their local business. So thanks for sharing some of those specific things that you guys do. I want to talk about leadership and resilience. I feel like when you first started DivaDance, it was about leading and guiding other instructors. But now, as the head of a huge franchise operation, I'm sure leadership looks a little different. What do you think is your core leadership resilience, or what's your strength that makes you a great leader?
Oh, what an awesome question. I actually haven't been asked that recently, but I've been reflecting on that recently. So I've been thinking a lot as my role in the company evolves, less from me being in the business and me now getting to work on the business. That's a phrase that a lot of entrepreneurs hear, but you can't really hear it because you're so in it, And so getting to work on the business means I get to work on the relationships. I get to have calls with our franchisees without even a specific agenda. We don't need to like plan their next marketing campaign or review all their KPIs. It's really like, how are you doing in this journey of entrepreneurship? So that is really one way where I have kind of less agendas with people, less structured check-ins or milestones or things we have to do. I get to help them with the mindset work. So that's really important. And then the reason where resilience comes up in that is that because I'm a doer, I like to work in the business. It has taken me retraining my own muscle to work on the business, because sometimes working in the business is the fun stuff. It's like planning the training and planning the call and like working on the manual and creating the guidelines. And I love doing all that stuff. But now I have found a newfound sort of intrinsic value and like fulfillment from that working on the business, where we're doing more, we're setting more quarterly priorities, and I'm looking at the bigger picture of things. And so that has been really it's worked a new muscle for me. So for folks who are growing or scaling their business, where you're maybe getting to a place where you have other folks in the business and you get to be on the business, that's a new muscle that you may have to kind of get reps on, and work. But it's very fulfilling, even if you feel like your to-do list is shorter and you find yourself kind of like, what do I even do here anymore? So my role has become a little bit more, I hate to use the word mascot, but it's kind of true. Like, I'm really the culture setter, the pace setter, the vibe setter. And I take that super seriously, even if the way that manifests day to day is not as structured and clear as it once was.
I love that. And I just have to tell our listeners, you are still in the business in some ways. I saw you leading classes in your location near where you live, but also if you're on the road, you'll go teach a class in another city.
Oh, I'll never not teach. As long as my body will allow it, which I hope. I'm trying to take care of my body so that I can do that for as many years as I want to. If teaching for me is not negotiable, I have to teach. I'm teaching today, right after you and I get off of this. I teach today. I teach every week here at our HQ when I'm traveling. I love it, because if I ever get to a place where, like, I don't like to teach anymore, something's wrong. Something's going on. And so that gives me so much, just, it fills up my heart, even my brain. It reminds me of what we're doing here. And so absolutely. But that is a not negotiable. I have to continue teaching our classes.
I love that. I think it's great. Okay, let's talk about online reviews and reputation management. You know, that's a big topic for us here. And you guys receive some of the most moving reviews. Our first episode together, one of the review writers had just really shared a personal story that brought her to DivaDance. How do you use those reviews to inspire your team?
Well, those reviews, I mean, you can't get much better feedback than someone taking a second out of their day to share honestly, whether you like what they're saying or not, but sharing honestly about their experience with your business. You have to take those seriously, even if you don't like what it says, which we all get sometimes. It's normal. No matter how much you disagree with what the review says, there's something to learn there. There's something to learn. But most of us, most likely, it's more good than that bad or that constructive. So those we use to recognize, obviously, at the franchise level. If I see a great review, which is often, we're shouting out our owners. We're shouting them out for creating the environment that brought that great feedback in. And again, people don't have to leave reviews, but they choose to. And that is so special, that people take a second out of their day. And I think about myself, like, which businesses I choose to leave a review for, which is versus ones that I'm like, nah, they don't need my review, or I don't feel that, I don't have a strong opinion about this. But I'm really I'm only a positive review type of person. I really just feel, because I'm a business owner, I want to make sure I'm really supporting other businesses, but I'm an honest positive reviewer, where I'll give really true feedback of what I did well. So in your question of what do we do with that information, obviously celebrating people, but here's the other big thing. If we're doing something right, we got to keep doing it. And that's something I don't think people learn from their reviews enough, is if they see positive feedback, something that they're doing right, repeat, keep doing it. I mean, somebody's noticing, right? Somebody's noticing. And if you do get some feedback that's maybe not a 5-star, not as where you want it to be, you have no choice but to learn from that. You can be bummed out for a second, and you can be a little bit like panic, or have that feeling in your tummy of like, oh, a sinking feeling, but you immediately got to learn from it. And, you got to respond to these reviews. You got to respond, positive or constructive. The first thing we do is thank them. Thank you for sharing your feedback. We have taken this we will look into this further. I've seen some responses to reviews that are like a little combative or a little, and I don't recommend that. So we take reviews very seriously. Even the ones that are not as favorable, we learn from those. You don't have a choice.
That was great advice. And I think the most important thing for people to hear out of that is really don't ignore those great reviews. I think so many people are worried about the critical, and that allows them to overlook the things that they're doing well. And to your point, when you are being recognized for things, do more of it. So really look at that content and learn from it in a way that helps you double down on the great things that you're doing that people love.
Well, especially with your workers. like you got to celebrate them. Even if you don't know it was directly their role, we got to celebrate all of us. If we get a positive review, they are we, right? So it's not just, oh, Michelle at the counter did her job. It's like we as a team created this experience. If the cook didn't do their job and Michelle couldn't offer friendly service in that role, then, it's not about Michelle getting the review. It's about that whole chain of teamwork that we have. So it's critical. Print those out, put them on the wall. No, it doesn't even matter the date. It doesn't even matter the date of the review. If it was 5 years ago, we've made good on our promise of whatever it is that we've said we're going to do for folks. So yeah, I love reviews. I welcome them.
Do you have a specific approach that you train franchisees on when it comes to a negative review? Do you guys have a process in place for that?
Yeah, we do. So my first recommendation to the owners is investigate. See what happened. What happened with this person? Even before you respond. So you got to do this pretty quickly because you do want to be very timely in your responses. But the first thing we do is we investigate. We look at what we did. Did we not respond to this person? Did we overlook them? Did we make a mistake? Because that sometimes happens. It's like, you know what? You're absolutely right. People love the phrase, you're right. It's like, you're right. That's not the level of that's not the experience you should have had. Or you're right. We didn't get back to you in a timely manner. So that's totally fine. But the first is really investigate. What happened? Where did we go wrong? Where did our process kind of break down? And then really that second is, thanking them for their feedback, or saying, we're going to look into this further. What we train our owners not to do is have a public kind of back and forth with anyone. That's just that's not good for anybody. You never want to embarrass the person that gave you that feedback. So it's ideal to kind of take that offline, offer a phone call. I always offer a phone. Let's get on the phone and talk about this. Because in my experience, it's very human. It's more humanizing when you can, humanize the business. And then you'd be surprised at how after we have a quick phone call and just a huddle, how sometimes those negative reviews tend to get removed because the person is like, you know what? I'm probably being too hard on them, So the thing to remember is that there are human beings behind every review. They're real human beings who may have just had a bad day. But definitely, in terms of how do we train our owners, first is you got to investigate, get the facts, not feelings, and then obviously that gratitude, see if we can take it offline. And at the end of the day, if that poor review sticks, then your job is just to offset it with positive reviews.
Great advice, Jamie. It was like I coached you for that.
But listen, that's best practice. We don't have a choice but to do that. So that's just how you have to operate as a business owner to make sure that you're doing right by everybody involved.
And it's good to have steps. Even just that first step being investigate. That gives you something to do to not focus on the emotion of, oh my gosh, I'm so upset we just got this critical review. So I love that. Very actionable things people can do.
There's something kind of panicky about a poor review. There's like, when you see it, you're like, like you feel like unless you address it right then and immediately, like somehow your business is going to fall apart. But you can take a second to investigate. You got to know the facts over the feelings.
That's my favorite, facts over feelings. I love that. That was great guidance. We're nearing the end here, so thank you for sharing so much great insights with people. What advice would you give to someone who wants to start a movement-based business? And then also, if they're interested in franchising, where can they learn more about DivaDance?
Sure. Well, my biggest advice is just do anything. Start. A lot of folks wait till they have perfection or they have all their branding and all their logo and all their everything all perfect when, maybe you haven't even done a pilot class. Do people, do people want this? So just have your first class. If you're thinking about doing a yoga class or any kind of movement class, just schedule one and do your best to get as many people there to give you feedback as you possibly can. And if it works, you do another. And if it works, you do another. So that is my first thing, is just do anything. Don't wait for perfection. Let's make some progress. And yeah, we are actively looking for folks all across the country and the world, but mostly North America, that would be a great fit for us. Franchising is such an awesome way to start a business. You have that framework, you have a trusted brand. We have spent tons of time and money to develop our systems and our brand that our franchisees won't have to. They'll get to just get in and build the culture they want, hire their people, and make decisions at the local level while still getting to be attached to a proven system. So DivaDanceFranchise.com is the best place for folks to go if you want to learn more about our franchise opportunity. We have a lot of, we are in a lot of cities, but we have a lot of white space on our map. So now is a really exciting time to become part of ours. We're looking for folks who are not so much dancers. That's not a critical criteria. It's really about folks who are passionate about inspiring confidence and building community, and also want to achieve freedom of their time and financial abundance. I want folks who are ready to create a life that they really want, doing something that's super meaningful.
Okay, 2 questions left. Is there anything that you wish people understood better about dance or fitness businesses or the industry in general?
Yeah, I mean, it's everybody is a dancer's, but everybody has a dancer's body. Everybody is a. It doesn't matter your body type. Everyone is insert your modality of choice. Everyone is a Pilates doer. Don't let your own narrative hold you back. That happens in dance a lot. It's like, well, I'm not very good. We carry a lot of narrative with us into movement businesses. I'm not thin enough. I'm too old. I'm not flexible. So if you really want to do something you want to learn, I picked up a barbell about 18 months ago. And I've essentially never put it down. I had the narrative in my mind, oh, that's only for, people who are bodybuilders, but I know that strength training is really important. So put the narrative on the side, try something if you really want to. That would be my biggest advice, honestly.
I love it. And to close us out, Jami, what's a piece of advice that you would give to your younger self before you started this journey?
Well, I hate to go back to something I already said, which is facts over feelings. I think when I was younger, I was very emotionally based, and like I made a lot of decisions without data. We have access to more data than ever now. And through AI, we have more ways that we can synthesize the data into actionable steps. And so part of it wasn't my fault because I was using a lot of feelings. I didn't have access to data. But even when I did, I was still like, well, it just feels like we should do this. And so now there's no reason you cannot make data driven decisions and use AI to help you take that data you have and put it into your next steps. We are doing that every day here, and it is very empowering to be able to harness it in that way.
Jami, thank you so much for your time. This has been wildly helpful, and I know that people, no matter what industry they're in, can all take something away. So I really appreciate your time for joining us today.
Well, and thank you guys for what you do to help small businesses.
Thanks so much for listening. If you want to learn more about DivaDance or see if there's classes near you, head to DivaDance.com. And if you need to add your business to Yelp or claim your free business user account, go to business.yelp.com. We drop episodes every week, so make sure to subscribe to the channel and you'll know when the next one hits. You can also reach out to us directly at podcasts@yelp.com, especially if you want to be a guest or have a topic you think we should cover. See you next time.